Caleb Calhoun. Sat down with longtime SEC columnist, author, great guy all around. He's been with CBS Sports. He's been with ESPN. Here is Tony Barnhart, live from Nashville on SEC Media Days, Day 2.
Caleb Calhoun here with Tony Barnhart with Off the Hook Sports. Tony, thanks for doing this with me today.
Good to be with you.
Thanks. We're talking a lot about Tennessee football, obviously. And how close, I just want to ask straight off the bat, how close is Tennessee to actually challenging Georgia in the East?
Well, tell me how Joe Milton's going to play. Tell me if Joe Milton can make the throws that Josh Heupel needs him to make, because Hendon Hooker had an incredible arm, but he knew how to make the different kind of passes necessary in that offense. Joe Milton's obviously got a rocket for an arm, but can he make the finesse throws that you need to make in an offense? If he can, then I know they had some losses at receiver, but I think they picked up some people that will work. But it really, quite honestly, it's going to come down to the quarterback.
Are there, and that's been the common theme for Tennessee all year. The thing that strikes me with them competing with Georgia, though, is even when they had Hendon Hooker last year, their offense couldn't do anything because the receivers, I felt, just couldn't beat Georgia's defensive backs one-on-one. Do you think that, even as good as Heupel's offense is, if you got defensive backs like Georgia, does it really even matter?
Well, that means you've got to break some big plays because they can guard you exceedingly well. And so, I like Georgia to win the East. I don't see Tennessee. I think Tennessee can finish second in the East, but I don't see them winning it. Now, having said that, Georgia's got to go to Knoxville on November 18th. That could be a monumental football game if Tennessee and Georgia take care of business. But right now, Georgia is the more talented of the two teams. And you know what? Tennessee knows that. And they got to figure out a way to win that kind of a game.
Yes, I totally agree. And one of the things that I think might help Tennessee this year is Georgia having to face Ole Miss right before. Kind of a hangover game. I'm sure they're going to be focused totally on Tennessee at the same time, but because that's the circled game for both schools at this point.
I would love for both of those schools to be undefeated and to have that. Of course, it would probably be the 3:30 game. CBS would make it a 3:30 game, but what a incredible atmosphere that would be. Man, that would be something.
It would, wouldn't it? And it's very rare when you got, I can't think of the last time two SEC teams played that late in the year undefeated, the next to the last week. I don't think that's ever happened. Is Georgia, are you concerned about their off-field issues that have happened this offseason?
Well, if you're looking at it, of course I'm concerned about it. Anybody would be. You've had a loss of life, but let's put that off. Let's put that off to the side. From a competitive standpoint, from a strictly football standpoint, I don't think it's going to impact them. Now, having said all that, they're trying to win their third straight national championship. There's a reason that has not been done. It's hard to do. But I still think Georgia has the talent to do it. They've recruited so well for so long. Here's one of the key stats that people forget about, is that when you lose a lot of really good players, if you've recruited at a high level, and Georgia has, the guys that you put in there have been waiting forever to get a chance to play, and they're really hungry. And I think that will be a factor for Georgia.
Yes, Tennessee fans know that firsthand because to this day, national media doesn't understand how they won the national title the year after Peyton Manning left.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they recruited so well. They had guys waiting in the wings to come out and ball.
And they had T. Martin and Al Wilson.
Yeah.
And they carried the team. So.
Exactly. So this is obviously the last year with the East and the West, and I know Tennessee's going to play Georgia again in 2024, but I don't think the rivalry is long for this world. It's kind of a sad thought, right? Because I know they weren't a long-time rivalry, but it really did explode when Mark Richt got to Georgia, and Knoxville not been so close.
And it's one of those things you give up. If for example, if they don't go to 9 conference games, then all of a sudden Auburn and Georgia, who have been playing since 1892, won't play every year. They'll play every other year. But I'm in favor of the new scheduling model because of this. With the way the scheduling model is set up, where you would play seven teams and basically have one permanent rival, that means that every 2 years you would play everybody in the conference, and every 4 years you play everybody in the conference, home and away. And I think that's only fair to players. It's fair to the fans. Texas A&M joined the SEC in 2012. Georgia still hasn't been to College Station, Texas, and that's because of the scheduling model that we've had. And so I think overall it's good for the conference and it's good. The fans absolutely deserve it. First, 2014, Georgia is going to Texas. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've already gotten from Georgia fans who want tickets to that game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and next year SEC Media Days is in Dallas, so they're pouring it on. They're wanting to go to Texas.
Well, they sort of told us they were going to do it because when they announced the schedule, everybody in the conference has to play Texas or Oklahoma. That's how you welcome two teams in your league. Same thing. You put the media days in Dallas, and that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you buy that? Does it seem like the SEC was trying to give Texas the easier road and railroad Oklahoma? Because I looked at their schedules next year, and it seems like Oklahoma got the worst of the deal.
Well, all I know is there's an opportunity for both, and whoever one or the two was going to have a lesser or greater schedule. So that's going to. I think Oklahoma's just so thrilled to be in the SEC. I don't think that'll be an issue.
Yeah, and so speaking of these SEC schools and these great jobs, Georgia has. I've always said Georgia was one of the best jobs in America if they got the right coach. I think one of the reasons they didn't win a national title before Kirby Smart, I always said their standards were a little too tough. I mean, Mark Richt had strict personal conduct standards, if I remember. All things being equal, though, Brian Kelly now at LSU. What's an easier job, Georgia or LSU?
Easier, I don't know. But I think because of the recruiting base that you have in Georgia, I would say it's not as hard to get the players. If you dominate recruiting in the state of Georgia, which Georgia has done, you're going to be in great shape. Louisiana has a lot of really good players, but I think you've got more opportunity to win a national championship for Georgia. LSU is a very close second.
Yeah, I could get with that. Yeah, I say my top tier were always Georgia, LSU, and Ohio State because those are the three schools that have no competition in their state for the elite talent they have. Before we let you get out of here, just wanted to talk a little bit about thinking long term. I guess some new rivalries that will crop up. You think with this new SEC schedule? What do you see that could really be the most exciting?
Well, the great thing is that Texas and Texas A&M are going to play every year, which they should. I think that is one. And games like Auburn and Florida. Auburn and Florida was a great rivalry that went away when they went to divisional play. So I'm really excited to see those two teams again because again, in a 2-year window, you'll play everybody else in the conference, and I think we will see some Auburn, Tennessee. What a great rivalry that was. I mean, Johnny Majors and Pat Dye, and that was but those are the kind of games we lost when we went to divisional play, and now we get those back.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns of the rumors of the schools like Florida State, Clemson, the SEC trying to raid the ACC? That'll make things worse? Or?
I got asked that last night. And I spoke to a group. I said, "Here's the deal about Clemson and Florida State. Understand, this is all about television markets. This is about eyeballs watching TV sets. You know, the fact of the matter is, the TV people will say, frankly, we don't need Florida State. We've got the University of Florida, which is by far the dominant program in the state. We don't really need Clemson because we've got the University of South Carolina. We dominate that market. So I don't see further expansion that way. Now, if the ACC falls apart and something happens, maybe you do it. But it's strictly a financial play. You've got to generate. If everybody in the conference is making $60 million a year, then the two teams you bring in has to generate another $120 million for what you're already doing. Because you're never going to take less money than you're already getting just to bring two schools. Even if they are good football schools, it's about how much money. How many eyeballs can you bring to TV sets?
Yeah, networks are still valuing market size over brand, even if
no question.
Yeah, Tony, thanks a lot for doing this. Really appreciate you, and congratulations on Georgia sports. Just the whole state, all of a sudden, the curse is over.
Yeah, well, my daughter has 2 degrees from the University of Georgia, and she's happy, so I'm happy. sports.
Yeah, and you're living in Atlanta, so you get to enjoy the Braves' success too.
There you go.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, thanks a lot. With Tony Barnhart, this has been Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports.
That is Tony Barnhart. And Caleb, what did you think of his thoughts on the scheduling model? I don't think that's fixed by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's going to get altered perhaps before 2024, but definitely in the very near future.
Yeah, I understand his point, and he thinks that it's great for fans, and I get that you want to see, if the conference has 16 teams, you want to see teams play every team in the conference. I didn't push back too hard in the moment, but I sometimes somewhat disagree. I actually cherish the annual rivalries more than I cherish the chance to play every team in the conference, and I don't know where you land on that. But I mean, honestly, if I had my choice, I'd rather see Tennessee play Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, even Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Ole Miss every year, honestly.
Now, I like the rivalries. I think we're getting to the point and that we're just not going to have them. I mean, I hate to say that, but I think when the SEC adds another couple of teams, and of course, Greg Sankey was asked about that. He said they're not actively looking for teams, but somebody's going to come calling. There are too many people out there that would like to call the SEC or at least the Big Ten home. So somebody's going to come calling, and eventually I think the SEC will take someone. And I think even the strongest rivalries, which would be Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, Auburn, may very well go away. I don't know how you can keep them if you start to get into an 18 or 20 game type of conference. And I think that's within 5 years. I think it's going to continue to grow to that point.